Today we're going to talk about a few of the new additions to the farm. We have a couple sheep that we picked up from some neighbors whose children are into the 4-H, and they both went off to college, one last year and one this year. Very, very friendly, so I think they'll be a great addition to the petting zoo. And then another spontaneous kind of new addition to the farm is some black cuckoo marins that are about a week old that we picked up the other day.
You've got tons of grass out back to eat. I tell you, you got to eat it, so I don't want to have to go mow it.
What is that?
What's that?
Not like Bernard.
You're all right. Who's that, Bernard? They'll get used to each other.
They've seen them both.
One of the biggest things is making sure that they are kept warm right now, because if it was a brood raised chick where they'd be with the hen, she would constantly keep them underneath her to keep her warm. And so we're going to simulate that, but how we simulate that without a hen is actually having a heat lamp that keeps them at a certain temperature, and the chicks are pretty tolerant of, you know, some fluctuation in the heat. So one of the indicators of whether or not your chicks are too hot or too cold is if they're just kind of like hanging out underneath the light, they're barely moving, they're not going over to the feed, or they're not going to the water. That's a good indicator that they're actually pretty cold and that you maybe need to lower the light a little bit. If they're too hot, you're going to find them to be like away from the heat, probably on the other side of, like, if this container, they'd be over here tucked in. And you know that it's really, if they're not even going near the heat source at all, or maybe that's where the food is, then that's kind of like they're too hot. Higher the light. You know, it's just observation, just keeping an eye on them to see if they're happy, if they're actually just keep going and eating and drinking, really just kind of observing their environment, jumping on each other, chasing flies. These are a straight run, and what a straight run means is you kind of have a potluck. We could have all roosters, we could have a half and half, we could have more hens than a roosters. It's really hard to tell. Once they get older, you're going to see them develop their combs a little bit. So eventually, with these guys, if they're more on the French cuckoo, they'll actually have some feathering on their feet. And then you'll see that they're starting to get their flight feathers and their adult coloring. And what's unique about these guys is they have that little white spot. And they're just really, really friendly. Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah. So this is Lucky. And she has been described as a dog. She just loves people. And then this is Beatrice, although nicknamed Bee. This one right here, Lucky, won 2 years in a row in obstacle course, and Beatrice won a bunch of medals for showing. So Lucky was an orphan. We had her mom, and her mom sadly died shortly after she was born. So we took her inside our house, and she lived in our living room, and we used to watch Netflix on the couch together. And eventually she could jump out of her play crib, and my dad said, yeah, okay. the sheep needs to go out in the barn with the rest of the sheep.
I like it, I like it. They're practicing flying. So what we do is we have some old screens that we have lying around the house, and I kind of just lay them on top, which allows the air to still circulate, the warmth of the heat lamp to go through, but it actually prevents them from coming out. Right now we have them just in a Rubbermaid container. We have their food and their water, which is there all the time. We change it probably twice a day, the water, only because with the heat lamp being in there, it kind of makes a really warm environment, and this water will get warm. It kind of will start to get slimy, and it could pick up some bacteria, and you can end up with the sick chicks then. So right for now, we'll do this, and then probably next week or two, we'll move them into like a brooding pen, which is basically a little bit of a larger, more contained area that they have more area to move around, and then they can grow. And hopefully by the time the snow flies, we can actually introduce them to the other part of the other flock, and they can actually be in the coop for the winter. And that's hopefully our goal.